seat. It's so exciting. So I'll just briefly say that Yarnslingers is a storytelling group, and all of the stories are true in first person. I am Ramona Jan, and I will start with my story, which is called Enema of the Mind. So how you doing today? Barks my new therapist, Samantha, her booming voice bouncing off steely walls as she leads me through a maze of corridors perfectly suited for a lab rat. Has our session already started? It is, after all, a free clinic. Have you done this before? She asks as we settle into a private room. I was in and out of therapy from age 19 to 44, I reply. So this isn't your first rodeo, she bellows. Rodeo? I always pictured therapy as more of a game show, much akin to the family dinner table sport of the 50s and 60s, where you never let anyone know who you really are. I'm here because I have cancer, I announce, and then do what I normally do in therapy, talk nonstop. The entire session is spent with me explaining all the complexities of my natural healing protocol, which includes daily coffee enemas. At the mention of enemas, Samantha's eyes widen, and I secretly decide never to come back. Then she exclaims, "In our next session, we're going to do an enema of the mind." I decide to return for an enema of the mind.
Fenimore's obsession. Who am I? The question makes me dizzy. My head needed examination, which is why I waited for Dr. Fenimore, who soon poked his pink head into the waiting room. "Hey, Joe, come in." I didn't remind him again that my name was Bill. As he eased into a vintage Charles Eames lounge chair, I flopped into what looked like a cast-off from an AA meeting. When I began treatment 6 months earlier, I resisted cracking wise about a class struggle between our chairs, but feared it might provoke a query like, "How did you feel about that, Joe?"
We are the stories we tell ourselves. We are the story we tell ourselves. No one wants to live a story they don't like. No one more than anyone wants to tell a story they don't like. Or, for that matter, listen to. Which puts you all in peril today. On the other hand, you've already been in peril insofar as you woke up listening to yourselves. So I hope the story you told yourself this morning was good, and not so lousy that you sought out Yarnslingers. Misery loves company, which is the first appeal of talk therapy. I have a family and personal history of manic depression. My takeaway from these experiences is this: don't trust doctors, no matter how kind or intelligent they seem. My father trusted his shrink, whom he talked to on a weekly basis, and quite enjoyed their discussions. But this trust ended after my dad dropped dead from a heart attack caused by the lithium he was prescribed.
Drip, drip, drip. I stopped in the entrance of our apartment. One shoe off, husband close behind. Silent, waiting, listening. Drip, the elevator heads down. The sound of muffled waters overpowered. I wait, anxious, paranoid. Dev, did you? The elevator stops. Drip, drip. Dev, am I crazy? Maybe, he answers immediately. Is that a leak? Confirmation, not crazy. Maybe. Over the next couple of days, that feeling of relief and comfort, so valuable when returning home, was gone. I was obsessed. My sanctuary consumed. I listened to the wall, felt its chill, and then the moisture seeping through. The drips progressed to a would-be soothing shh, similar to a rain stick, and finally, to waterfall-esque forceful whooshing. I was powerless, calling an unresponsive management company and rushing home to empty sacks of stretched latex paint full of plastery wall water into buckets. By the time I tracked down our super, the damage was done. I'd been traumatized.
Unanticipated milestones. There are people who can transcend time, who they are or were, what they've been to us, manage to live in our hearts concurrently. The way we do or don't express ourselves, the way we drink coffee, the way we clean, they're just in our DNA. Aunt Lil was an aunt by choice as opposed to genetics or marriage. She and my mom both lost their first husbands in their early 30s before I was born. Their houses shared a backyard fence anchored by a telephone pole which was greased, I realized as I wrote this, so their army of children couldn't climb it. 2 widows, 11 kids, 5 bedrooms, 2 baths. A sitcom premise with 1 television per household. Nearly impossible by today's standards. Lil and my mom made it look easy when surely it wasn't. What comfort they must have found when neighbors became family. When they had neither time nor money for more professional versions, friends became each other's therapist. They had a theraship.
Sometimes when you make a friend, you make 2 friends inside of 1 person. Bill was a normal college kid who ran his car off the road intentionally when his girlfriend broke up with him. They miraculously got back together when she returned from India. We became roommates at the end of the school year. When his girlfriend broke up with him again over the phone in June, I chose not to think about that little piece of information. We all chose not to think about it and hoped for the best. It was summer in Maine and everything was as it should be. Nobody noticed right away when things started to change. Sometimes you are so caught up in your own life that you hardly notice when the person's life in the room down the hall is spiraling out of control. To be fair, things started off surprisingly well for Bill. He had recently been promoted to manager at the pizzeria diner around the block, a surprise even to me. He was also working at overtime as a prep chef. It was only a matter of days before the transformation began. His round face and sparkly blue eyes were suddenly cast in a morbid shadow. One afternoon, he quietly announced that he had stopped taking his medication and simultaneously purchased a large bag of psychedelic mushrooms.
When did you know that you were gay? He asked 3 minutes into my first session. I didn't know how to answer, but I pondered the question aloud. The first time I heard the word, I was 6, I said, sitting with my mom while she watched The Gay Divorcee on $1 Million Movie. I don't remember the plot, but I'm pretty sure that lady wasn't a lesbian. And then there were the Christmas songs, I said. Don we now our gay apparel, make the Yuletide gay. Is that what you mean? Dig a little deeper, he nudged. You're paying by the hour. I grew silent for a moment. Fag, fairy, pansy, queer. At the age of 7, I didn't really know what all those words meant, but I had heard them and somehow knew that queer meant me. Just to be sure, I went to the dictionary rather than ask out loud. Queer, I read. A, differing in some way from what is usual or normal. B, eccentric or unconventional. C, mildly insane. I understood normal and I knew what insane meant crazy, so I was troubled by what I had read. I knew what a pansy was and thought they were pretty, so I was unsure why my father was so mad when he said it. I asked a school chum what a fag was, and he said his aunt told him it was an English cigarette, which made no sense whatsoever. Tinkerbell was a fairy and everyone liked her, but insane? That can't be good. Go on, says the therapist. We're getting somewhere now. At 8, I said, I overheard my uncle telling my father that he was worried. He throws like a girl, Uncle Sid said to my father. You need to nip this in the bud. I couldn't make out how my father responded, but his tone was unpleasant, and I stifled a sob, staying hidden in the closet until they headed to the den and the ever-present scotch and soda. Really? The closet?
The man who stands before you did not spring full-grown from the head of Zeus, armored and helmeted, like Athena. Rather, he was slowly, painstakingly shaped by a succession of therapists. The Lacanian with whom I exchanged chiseled Gallic epigrams, insults disguised as insights. The Jungian who extracted symbol-drenched, novella-length dreams from my highly competitive unconscious. The only time since college that I've had to pay rather than be paid for writing. The grumpy, wily Freudian who, when my wife and I did couples therapy, brought us together by annoying us both. The Krishnamurtian who, no, wait, she was different. My agent, Joe, introduced us. A full-service agent, he felt I needed a tune-up to enhance my happiness and self-fulfillment, of which he would get 15%. So he introduced me to his own former therapist, Lottie. She was my Lincoln, he said.
6 years ago, I was 28 years old and living in New York City. I was depressed. Again. My recurring episodes snuck up on me the way the sunset gets earlier every day, 1 minute at a time, until afternoon suddenly looks like midnight, and you wonder where the light went. I could map my breakdowns by neighborhood and subway line, the party I left in a panic, the street corner I sobbed on. In my despair, I saw flashes of a way out, a leap in front of a subway train, a jump from a high balcony, just another public spot on the map of Busy's emotional turmoil. I knew I needed help, but I was so tired of therapy. I wanted to try antidepressants for the first time. Dr. Parker prescribed me 25 milligrams of Zoloft, the smallest pill available. "How do you feel?" he asked at my follow-up appointment. I felt good. There were electric butterflies in my chest. No, not butterflies, bees, adrenaline bees, a constant buzz and flurry. And in my stomach, that gut flip, that flickering quiver, like when you drive too fast over a hill and your tires leave the ground. I felt good. "You feel too good," Dr. Parker said, and he told me to cut my pills in half. I did. And even though I had barely a trickle of medication in my system, it threw me into an accelerated state almost immediately. I felt frustrated at work, boxed in by the city, and agitated every day by the family of mice under my kitchen sink, who, just when I thought it was safe, would skitter across the tile, eating the bait right off the traps. They refused to die. I wanted out. I became obsessed with the idea of escaping this city of sadness. I browsed real estate listings for places I'd never even been, faraway country towns that sounded like a cure to all my turmoil. Liberty, Paradise Valley, Beacon. And then I saw it.